I've been gradually playing Alan Wake over the last couple of weeks. It wasn't a completely random choice from my list of things to play. I guess the fact that Alan Wake 2 is releasing before the end of the year is one obvious reason. I also pieced together a new computer system, and it's been a long time since I last upgraded. I've been thinking about what graphically intense games would be fun to try playing on it. There actually aren't a ton of games on my list that fall into that kind of category, and Alan Wake being a 2010 release is not what I'd consider one of them. A couple of games that do fit the bill are Cyberpunk 2077 and Control. Cyberpunk was my first pick. As a fan of William Gibson, Akira, Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, I was pretty excited for Cyberpunk when it was first announced. But I never ended up playing it because of the fiasco its release turned out to be. At this point, I've waited long enough that Phantom Liberty, its one and only planned expansion, just released. More importantly, just before the expansion, there was a substantial patch for the base game that revised some pretty major things. I planned to stick to the base game first, but it seemed kind of silly not to wait for the patch and for any initial kinks to get ironed out, when I've already waited nearly 3 years to play. So Cyberpunk was off the table for a little longer. At least it was a few weeks ago when I was thinking about this. That left me with Control. Hardly unfortunate given how highly regarded I think the game is. I'm always fascinated by universe building, and I've heard that developer Remedy has created connections between some of their games, including Control and Alan Wake. I know I've tried to play Alan Wake in the past, but it was years ago, and I stopped. I don't remember much about the game, so I thought it'd be fun to go back, try it out again before jumping into Control, so I could enjoy any elements that might connect the two. It turns out when I'd played years ago, I'd reached the same point in the game I have now, the end of Episode 3. I should mention I'm playing the PC version, released sometime after the original Xbox game. The remastered version from a couple of years ago is, or was, available via PlayStation Plus. I tried it out briefly, but I decided I'd rather have mouse and keyboard control, and it didn't sound like the remastered version was too different. Maybe most importantly, the American Nightmare standalone spin-off is not available in the remastered version, and I thought it would be jarring to play that on a different platform with different looking graphics, if I did get into the game and wanted to try it too. So how have I been enjoying the experience so far? I found I was really into things right off the bat. The story is a bit stilted and goofy, like Alan himself, which comes off as largely intentional, pulpy. I like a decent mystery, and the mystery here is laid out pretty quick and early to pull you in. The ambience of the rustic Pacific Northwest town, ominous fog and darkness, reminded me of some old favorites like the first couple Silent Hill games. Though there's much more explicit narrative on offer here. That's good, because it is the narrative that is pulling me through, as the gameplay has turned out to be a bit more action-oriented than I think I'd prefer. After being lured into some sort of evil cabin that turned out to no longer exist, having his wife kidnapped, and losing a week of time apparently spent writing a manuscript that is now coming to life, I've been running Alan through the woods for the last few hours, away from the FBI and toward his wife's supposed kidnapper. The same 3 or 4 shadowy hunter guys infused by darkness endlessly attack me to, I guess, spice things up. For an everyday guy who can't sprint for more than 15 seconds without having to rest, Alan sure seems comfortable in more ways than one with guns. His aim is spot on, and I'd have to say the game probably wouldn't be much fun if it wasn't, because there's quite a bit of combat, and enemies are fast, aggressive, and encircle you when they spawn. This quickly wiped any impression that this is a survival horror game from my mind, and I think I personally hoped for a little more survival horror than action-adventure. I think the combat has eased since getting more powerful items like flares and flashbangs that allow you to take out groups, or just keep enemies away from you. I started off on normal difficulty, but by episode 3, I felt like I just didn't want to be slowed down by the combat and switched over to easy. I like the flashlight mechanic and burning the darkness away from foes to damage them. It's visually striking and adds a unique element. But it also makes enemies tanky when they already spawn all around you and close in with pretty relentless melee and throwing weapon attacks. Your recourse is a dodge move, but your stamina for dodging, like running, seems fairly limited, so you must stand and fight. Whatever stamina meter there is, it's invisible as well, which just makes it feel unreliable. I wasn't having much success running and avoiding enemies in this game. I had to spend my fairly plentiful offensive resources to dispatch everything in front of me before they got in my face, staggering enemies in turn with the limited high beam flashlight and taking them down. I would be curious to at least try things on the highest difficulty at some point, but it's just not how I wanted to play through after the first couple of episodes.
Science. It bestows immortality on those who advance it to elevate all of mankind. Newton, Einstein, Sagan, princes among men. But the price for such a legacy is steep indeed. In Night Springs.
Episode 3 was a particularly long one, the longest yet, I think. And having reached its end, I wasn't overly satisfied by the conclusion. Of course, more episodes await, and with one apparent enemy dispatched, the core darkness still remains to uncover. FBI agent Nightingale is also a mystery in and of himself at the moment. He's shown up out of nowhere, all bluster and bullets, and is after me for who knows why. So hopefully there's more to that to uncover. I may also be missing some of the story experience. Since I played the game previously, my save seems to have remembered all the manuscript pages I've picked up throughout the game. Those persist, even on a new game, and the game doesn't make it clear which ones you've just picked up as you play, if it's one you've already collected. So I haven't been sure what to read when. I've ended up waiting to read them all until after I finish each episode. I'm curious about the order pages appear in, and what they might add or spoil as you play. This, in fact, is how I know that I stopped at episode 3 previously, because I have no manuscript pages beyond it. I'll have to see how the next episode feels then, collecting and reading pages as I go. I have been listening to and enjoying the radio programs you encountered, as well as the Night Springs episodes, though their significance, aside from being a Twilight Zone-inspired bit of flavor, isn't clear to me yet. I think I've sounded a little bit negative overall, but I am enjoying the game, and I want to see it through this time. If nothing else, seeing where the story goes and feeling powerful with lots of resources to tackle the somewhat obnoxious enemies is keeping me engaged. I think if the game carries on for too long, it could wear pretty thin, but I'd be surprised if the game is more than a few more hours. I guess we'll see. As always, thank you so much for spending your time here on the channel, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Until next time, take care.